I know where there's some, right here in the hall, clerk.
No, Molly, not in there. I have
a You may remember from the last episode regarding this Motorola that the audio output transformer was open on the primary winding, and I attempted to chase down the leads, and they are so tiny. It's like number 42 AWG wire on this primary coil, and I tried, and every time I would expose a little bit of it, it would just break. Really fragile stuff. So I gave up on this. Looked around briefly for a direct replacement, and there are none to be found. So what I thought, okay, somewhere out there in the world is a donor. I can pitch all this and get a donor radio and replace the audio transformer in this filthy circuit, which goes right here. So I looked on eBay, the source of all used stuff, and found one which I had been thinking about as being the donor radio. And here it is. It's a pink donor radio. It's exactly the same model. The cabinet is in equally good shape. Of course, this is gone, but it does have the gold filler down here. It has both knobs, and they are in great shape. Far better than the ones that came with the green one. And the seller said it worked, so that's what we're going to find out right now. The back is in great shape. The cabinet is, the cord is even still holding together, barely. A little wear right there, but it's holding together. Exactly the same model, except for it's an A16P, which stands for pink. So what I'm going to do is try this out right now. We'll put it in the dim bulb tester and on the isolation transformer and variac combination, and we'll see if it does indeed work like the guy said it did. That would be exciting. Then in that case, I think I'll actually see if my daughter, and recall this was a gift from my daughter who fell in love with this turquoise green one, but I'll see if she wants pink instead. If she doesn't, I'll move the chassis, presuming it works and I get it cleaned up. I'll move the chassis out of this radio and into the green cabinet for her, and she wants to switch to pink at some point in the future, she can. So that's an option. So plug this into the dim bulb tester. Turn the voltage down on the variac and turn it on. Make sure this is on. It's not. It's on now. This is on. And we'll start easing the voltage into it. See if we get any flares on there, or get any sound out of this, or smoke. So it's about 50 volts. These don't have a pilot light, so there's no way to tell whether we've got bulbs lighting up inside or not, but we'll take our time here. That's about 75. And we'll go on up to about 115. I don't hear anything. Whoa.
A first round bye in the AFC playoffs. I will take Kansas City, though. You can't trust Denver on the road. I know I picked against them last week, and they surprised me. But that, to me, was more about Houston just not showing up. That was a no-excuse kind of thing for Houston. Kansas City gets to win out.
You want to sell it to the government gets
software dealing with the fact that, oh my goodness, we have cancer.
But it's just a... Когда
Our local Russian station. Well, this works great.
the world's in a bit... Subsource that's still used. Margaret Thatcher? Everybody was upset. What do you think the Giants...
Boy,
SportsNorthwest.com.
in the Portland market, there's just no music left on AM. Very little. Little, as I said before, a little Russian language music.
I think he's going to like it, but I'm not quite...
A ton of talk, most of which isn't worth listening to. And no music. So one of my next projects is
I've heard both things are...
this sounds great. One of my next projects is to
I'm not saying it's a big problem.
build an AM transmitter, tube type AM transmitter. So that's great. What I'll do next is pull this out of this cabinet and give the cabinet a scrub, and probably, I mean, there's no huge amount of AC hum. It's a usual noise, but probably just put it back in and wrap it up, and it's voila, it's a Christmas gift. I paid for this about twice what I paid for this, but I only paid $10 for this. It's probably a $5 or $2 purchase, but I paid 10 because she fell in love with it. And I paid twice as much for this, but it works. So now, instead of this being the donor chassis, this has become a donor chassis with 5 good tubes. So that's not a bad deal, I guess. So, all right, next, cleaning. So the cleaning, the process is the same. Remove the knobs. I'm so pleased to have knobs. These are, turns out, are really hard to find. That doesn't feel like it wants to come off. I don't remember it having a keeper. There was this nut I'd removed on the other one. But this knob, and look at the difference between those two. I don't know if you can see that. This hasn't been cleaned up. This is as cleaned up as it's ever going to be, and it's got schmutz all over it. This one is nice as can be. But I don't see anything on the old knob that suggests there's any kind of keeper back there. Oh, maybe I just needed some thinking time. It looks the same down in here. I don't see any difference between them. Ah, there it is. Yeah, same thing. Good. Around the back, and 2 screws holding in the back panel, which has the interlock and a decent cord. So, well, this was a find. Well, it's not as dusty, but darn near. It doesn't look like it's had a Coke dropped in it. Interesting, some interesting green, bright green corrosion on this plug right here. Well, next I'll undo the antenna and undo the speaker cords, pull the chassis, and then release the speaker, and we'll check it out. See if it looks better than the other one. The other one was in not great shape. All of the paper right along here is damaged. This is, the black stuff is rust converter. Smeared all over it. I could sand that off and painted it. This might just be a spare emergency speaker. Depends on how this one looks. We'll see. Okay, I won't bore you with unsoldering this stuff, but I'll be back. One thing I noticed about this is a early 60s radio, and one advantage over working on them over the really old ones is they weren't insane about wrapping wires multiple times around terminals. So they just, as you probably may be able to see right there, they just put a loop of wire in there, bent it back, and soldered it down. Which is fine, I think. Sometimes getting on the old, like I just finished a Zenith, and boy, it's a pain to unwrap 5 twists of wire from a terminal. Don't care for it. I think that's why a lot of people, including me, just sometimes nip it off and clean it up after the fact. Here's the speaker, and it's got a couple of water stains on it, here and here, and here and here, minor ones, but boy, it's in a lot better shape than the old one. So overall, this is a much better radio. This cone looks like it's complete. I don't see any damage in it at all. And it sounded fine, so I think it will do just really nicely. I don't hear any scrubbing on the voice coil, so I think that's it. It's good. Okay, I'll stop here and okay, the cabinet cleaned up pretty well. Interestingly, not quite as clean as the green one. I don't know if you can see. There's some shadow staining in this part of the grill that doesn't seem to want to come out, And I'm afraid to scrub too hard for fear this is paint. I'll scrub through it. But otherwise it looks pretty good. It has a couple of nicks out of the plastic right here. Not as bad as the other one. There's a residue, which I'm sure you can't see right here, from something was taped on there, so a little bit of tape residue. Sides look great. Bottom looks fine. One thing I ran across that was kind of odd, and I panicked at first because I thought this, how can I get this so you can see it? Right there. I thought, oh, there's a crack in the base. And it goes up, right up to the edge of the plastic, like that. But on this side, nothing. No sign of filler, no sign of anything. It's like, that's a casting mistake. When they molded this, there was an edge there for some reason. And likewise, around the perimeter here, there are these, there, you can see them there. These lines right here, which are also molding errors. So this one isn't made quite as finely as the other one. Another interesting thing is the pink. I haven't looked at the other one, the green cabinet yet, but there's a kind of a scorch mark right there, which relates to this tube getting pretty hot. And then I get to looking at the bottom of it, and right here there's a trace that's supposed to run from here, this set of pads, up to this one, and it's missing right there, and a piece of wire has been laid in there. So that trace burnt out at some point and scorched the bottom of the cabinet. But it's been pretty nicely replaced, and I don't see any reason to monkey with it. And certainly the radio works. I doubt it was a factory problem. They probably wouldn't have shipped it. I can't imagine they had shipped it with a scorch mark on the bottom like that. So somebody fixed this, and they did fine. So next is this bit of stuff. I'll sit here and clean this.